Math 10's video comes out at 2.1, the tangent ratio. Remember in our previous video we talked about what's the angle of elevation or inclination is if you measure from the horizontal up to the top of something. That's important for this question as well. I lean a 12-foot ladder against the wall and its base is 3.5 feet from the wall. What is the angle of inclination of the ladder to the nearest degree? I strongly suggest you try drawing a picture whenever you're given a word problem that doesn't come with one. And you don't need a fancy picture, but you need a floor, a wall, and a ladder. So they make a triangle, and it is a nice right angle triangle, assuming the floor and the wall are meeting at 90 degrees. But notice we have a bit of a challenge here, and that is that we're not given the sides we've been given in our previous questions. If we look at what sides we have the adjacent, which is good, but we don't have the opposite, we have the hypotenuse. What that will mean for us in future lessons is that we won't use tangent at all. We'll actually use cosine for a question like this. But since tangent is opposite over adjacent, the only way to use tangent here will be to find that opposite side length. Now you guys have the skills from previous courses to find a missing side length of a right angle triangle, and that is to just use Pythagoras. We know that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So in this case, 12 squared minus 3.5 squared is going to give us that missing side squared. So let's just call that x for a second. 12 squared minus 3.5 squared will give us the length of x squared. So some number crunching, 144 minus 12.25 gives me 131.75. Don't forget to square root that, because clearly that side is not 131 feet long. It is the square root of that, which is a little bit under 11.5. And just carry all the decimals on your calculator. It's perfectly capable of doing that. You don't need to round yet, because we should only round when we get to our final answer. So what does that mean? That means that this missing side here, the opposite side, was about 11.478 units long. So now we can set up the tan ratio and say tan is equal to tan of theta equals 11.478 decimal divided by 3.5. If you calculate that, again, you get an awful decimal, but about 3.28. That is not the angle. The inverse tan will give me the angle. And if you do inverse tan of that number, you're going to get very, very, very close to 73 degrees. And they asked us to round to the nearest degree. And so I look back at my picture, does that answer make sense? Seems to make sense to me. I'm not sure I'd want to stand on that ladder. 73 degrees is pretty steep angle to have that thing leaning like that, but given these dimensions, that's the angle of inclination of the ladder.